And you know, that just thinking about that, you know, it's something that, you know, a little more mathematical, scientific, and maybe something like that will lend itself more to like a DARPA type of thing than, you know, even though I know recently they did that, you know, spotting the weather balloons, right, which was like a crowdsourcing thing that actually worked out really well. But I'm thinking like, you know, there's so much historic, you know, historic, it could be from a year ago, satellite data, elevation data, and I'm thinking, all right, maybe there's something that else could happen, you know, someone else flies, you know, a LiDAR set, or it could be a high-resolution aerial photo set, and maybe doing change detection or comparing the new data versus the old data sets, and from that, you know, starting to identify which areas were hardest to hit, you know, which places that need the resources first, try to, you know, create a model of, you know, we're going to go send people into this area first, and then hit this area second, this area third, and then, you know, take it from there. I don't know, it's one idea for an approach that, you know, might be a little more quantifiable.
Well, LiDAR is like, if we could get elevation data in many parts of the world, that would be a holy grail, because elevation data sucks. And on the unclassified space, you can't get it. I mean, it's 30 meters.
Yeah, SRTM is not good for most purposes, well, many purposes.
You could structure a prize around that one of the rules was that a local team had to address something locally, but that, I mean, a lot of it that they had to pair with a team that was doing, you know, something else from, say, maybe this level, and how that would work, so that the prize was, the judging was based on how well you managed to form a team. Because actually that's another thing I learned from the Lunar X, was that what was interesting about it is it forced you to talk across communities that had got broken up by having government space program. Like, we had to go back and find all the my partner actually had done one of the first only private space missions before, and they worked with all the rocket people who did Evel Knievel rockets and things, and we had to track them all down. There's only a few people who do private rockets right now. So in this way, like, the goal of the competition was that the best marriages were made in each area. So you had steps, like you had to find a partner that was, you know, like a local group had to find a non-local partner, so that they came up with the best idea together, because that way, you know, you weren't judging whether their solution against anyone else's, you would judge sort of these, you know, abilities to form collaborations, and I mean, it's sort of subjective, but I mean, it's a way of that, you know, so people would be working on things like that data, but it would be contextualized because you had to work with a local partnership.
Right, I think would be more about figuring out processes to start in place since you don't know where the disaster is, what the nature of the disaster is. Because, you know, a plague or an earthquake or a flood are all very different, or a typhoon or something, they're all very different from each other, so you won't know that. So it's more, I would think, more be about the process it goes about to discover.
Yes, you'd have to judge.
A discovery process. And that way the process would adjust for what the local things are as part of the input to that process.
Yeah, one thing I think you're right about, you know, in like a crisis, you have like all these different elements and organizations who are, you know, taking a big role in this effort, and so you have to actually take into consideration their own needs and requirements, and you know, evaluate whatever this contest will have to evaluate from their opinions as well, their own, you know, perspective. Because if you're not going to have like a clear winner where, you know, you get into space or something like that, you're going to have to look at like the different government organizations, maybe some military, civilian organizations, NGOs, and whatever else involved in the crisis. You're definitely going to have to see if this solution that this contest is seeking is going to satisfy all of them and work together.
Well, that was the criteria for judging, was how well they solved that in each.
Oh, yeah.
Could be. I mean, it's just.
See, the problem is there are so many different types of disasters. There are so many different localities to do it in. The matrix of those is enormous, and probably not something that could be phrased in terms of a contest. You could have a tsunami happen in any one of a few coastal areas on the planet. You could have, infectious disease could happen anywhere. You have
Or everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much. And you have earthquakes, pretty common in most places, and even places we don't think about are just long overdue, and it's not in our human time scale to think about them, but in geologic time that you blink.
Well, you think
But-
it was sort of a Larry Brilliant kind of prize then, the way they judge the Google.org prize, because I've heard him explain it's quite specific.
Didn't work out so well, it seems.
Oh, really?
Well, when Google.org's been reworked.
It has, I didn't know. Not fun.
And Larry's now in New York, not with Google.org anymore. The work here is, it's a difficult challenge that was given to me to figure out, can we phrase one? And I was asked to see whether I could figure out a way of taking the work from Haiti and turning it into a challenge that's measurable. And so much of the work was relational, not measurable. How do you measure human relationships? I guess there are some social scientists that will tell you it can be done, but
Social scientists will say, oh, so that was the thing in archaeology, in anthropology, they had the whole new archaeology or whatever in the 60s or whatever. Then the postmodernists came by and said that's a bunch of bunk, basically. And since about starting in the 80s and 90s, saying, well, we can't really do this. Trying to turn archaeology into natural science, which it's not, or anthropology into natural science. It's not a natural science. The art is not there yet to understand, to quantify human feelings and emotions that way, to that extent. I mean, you have some rough estimates, perhaps, but
they remain rough estimates.
yes.
And it's hard to judge someone on a contest on a rough estimate.
Yeah.
Foursquare to the rescue. Everyone has to get a bunch of badges. Every time they form a new relationship.
I have to meet this guy.
Isn't Dennis here today?
I don't know if he's here today. Someone needs to introduce me. We both have the same last name, so.
I said everyone was out real late, so.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think there's a couple of different things. So you could try to aim for the 5%, like very measurable type things, and you could maybe do that with various types of mapping and processing. Or do you create a simulation and create a scenario where there's teams sort of competing? The flaw with that is then you're sort of creating like the opposite of the positive thing that happened in Haiti. Oh, right. So you'd be like, we're going to have 10 teams and we're going to compete against each other. Oh, wait, that's not really what we're trying to do. But that could at the same time go the way of the DARPA balloon challenge where, it was convincing people to go into a pyramid scheme to win anyway. Like maybe there are solutions of where teams would collaborate for certain reasons to solve a problem.
You just sparked a really intriguing idea. So, what if there was a game, literally a model, that had the matrix of different possibilities and a space with a topology inside? It could be a computer-generated space. It could be space that's already known and has just been characterized inside of this model. And you had teams that would come together into a exercise in a controlled environment. And the teams would need to have set up some kind of agreement on how they would create situational awareness within X time and know the following things about that.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And as a team, you could do the Let's Be Assholes team, and that's fine, and maybe that's going to work. Or you could collaborate with other teams, but it would be about the relationships then, because people could act in very different ways,
The question is, how realistic are your simulations there to what the situations you really need? That's the problem.
And the problem is it's the further you get away from being on the ground. I mean, that to me is what's powerful about Haiti is that
it's whether or not you do like a digital simulation or do something
it's got to be on the
real
ground.
world actually on the ground.
I think some of it has to be on the ground because that was the magic that happened in Haiti. Is somehow we managed to connect these things we do well here with this situation on the ground there, and people on the ground could feed into it and work with it, wasn't it? I mean, that was what's so surprising about it. So I think a simulation